tired. We're good though. We don't have to start over.
We've just done the introductions and we've just approved the minutes.
Yeah, there we go. Great recap. Thank you.
Item number 3, Jen, that is you.
Yep, great. I'm just gonna give a quick update. During the last Cannabis Advisory Panel meeting, a couple of questions came up amongst several members, and so went and did a little research and just wanted to get back to you on those. So the first question was, could the CAP invite the city of Redmond or some sort of engagement with the city of Redmond as they go through the process of reevaluating or maybe updating their cannabis rules for the city? And we get a very firm no, that's not within the purview of the CAP's business, and we don't want to mix county recommendations with city recommendations. So I have been following it in the news. It does look like they're going forward with the vote, but as far as having them come to this meeting and participating, we're going to decline that option for now.
They could participate just as.
Anyone's welcome to
Right.
come at any
Right.
time, and if they ask to come and listen to what the business is, similar to what Phil did, then anyone's welcome and to engage. But as far as outreach from CAP members, that's going to be strongly discouraged and definitely not on behalf of the CAP as outreach.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? No. And if you want, I did write in the 3 rules or the 3 kind of purview of the CAP, just as a refresher. One of them is the use of monies transferred to the county under the ORS. One of them is increases in public safety measures related to marijuana use, marijuana and titles in the county. And then third is the issues presented by the production, processing, wholesaling, and distribution of marijuana in the unincorporated area subject to the jurisdiction of the county, which Angie will get to in our very next item. And then the second question that came up potentially was, could we reduce the number of CAP meetings? And at this juncture, we cannot. ORS states that we have to meet quarterly. As far as I know, we are the only county to date that was written very specifically by our local representative here on kind of how that meeting structure goes. And so we are the only county as to date that I know of that has a CAP, and the specific purposes are, as you know, it was originally the county voted to not allow new distribution or new businesses, but there was still tax revenue coming from existing businesses to be able to get those revenues in. This is what the CAP's purpose was initially set up for. So in that, they happened to write in the ORS that it needed to meet quarterly. That's not necessarily if other committee meetings are set up where it's written there. So it's something we can pursue if the legislature wants to take it up, but up until the legislature changes, we'll have to continue to meet on a quarterly basis. Now, if we, don't have a lot of business or an agenda item to go to, we can, go strictly to a Zoom meeting to touch base to meet that requirement. But we think, at least the next few meetings, we have specific things to talk about. So.
Yeah, well, and obviously we don't want to do anything to jeopardize the tax revenue that comes into the county. Yeah, okay.
That is all the updates from my end at the structure.
Okay.
Any questions on any of those? No. Okay.
Sorry,
Hey,
Welcome.
Dustin Miller has arrived at the building.
Entered the room.
All right, Angie and Jeff, you are number 4 on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna do this. It usually takes me a hot second to get this all working properly.
Oh, fire.
Yeah. This always takes me a second. It's a little tricky.
Yeah, it is, but I think that's why I didn't. Where's the?
Sorry, what do you want me to do?
Oh, actually. Oh, get back.
Good.
I really did.
They're in fact, those guys are killer.
It's good stuff.
Their stuff is so good. It's so cool.
I've been studying for the kids.
Yeah, you installed it.
Yeah, you said the side work.
They're cool.
Yeah, Darren's a good guy. They're not, it's a good company.
Yeah.
It's one of the best rated jobs.
Exactly. Yeah, that's Iowa Ram. So I looked at it a couple times. I
Close the whole
don't,
thing.
not yet. Someday. I tell, I'm not, so I wonder like I would lose.
You only do it in front.
Only the front.
You only do it in front for the most part.
Like, I'm doing like over here, like,
You can't read it.
Was that?
Yeah.
Matt, could you please on if you can see the slide?
I just want to be able to- This is huge.
What was that?
Can you see the slideshow that's showing on the screen? It says code
No.
enforcement.
No, I can't see it.
There you go. Okay, 1 second.
That, Darren and, Bill,
So that you should.
No,
You should have got it.
I know that couple times, hold on. He manages the camps, all in person.
okay, and so we just want to send.
Can you see it now, Matt?
No, still nothing.
We'll get there. Just give me a second. Oh, I know it.
Cloud strike. Strike.
Sitting here.
No, we just made the introductions and approved.
And then remind me to
No.
it back at the end. Can you see it now?
Yep, we got it.
Do you see it as a full screen or as a lot, like a small screen, a lot of black in the background?
A smaller screen.
Yeah.
Like I can see the next slide on the side, but that's okay.
1 more second and then I'll get it. Why is technology is not my strong suit. Anyone? It's a little weird. There we go. Can you see it
There
full
we
screen
go.
now?
Perfect.
Yeah. Whew. All right.
Well done.
Okay, maybe that was 2 minutes. Usually it takes me only a minute to figure that out. Oh, but now you guys can't see it.
Should we dial into Zoom on our?
Oh, for the
This
love.
happens to me every committee meeting, even, I need to write myself instructions so that I don't, but like, you all see my confidence as we get going on. Okay, let me try one other thing. Hold on. There, but he can't see it yet.
I can still see it. It's just on that like smaller version, which is it's totally legible.
Now you can see the full screen.
Full screen.
Okay.
All right. Well done. Well done.
Nice work.
Okay, now it's Andy.
All right. All right, you guys, thanks for having us back. Again, I'm Angie Havner, Code Enforcement Coordinated Services Manager. This is Jeff Williams. What we are going to do.
Not advancing.
Um,
Okay.
Is should we just kind of put together a history of code
Oh,
enforcement?
bottom left corner maybe?
Where
Oh,
we came from?
there you go, bottom, yeah. There.
Oh, there. Okay, perfect.
Okay, just
I'll just move the mouse and I won't bump anything. Okay, so we put together for you, last time we were here, you blessed our team with funds. And so we've been working through that. Very thankful to have that. And then we wanted to come back and give you an update, kind of present who code enforcement is, where we started, where we came from. Just awesome partnership with Dustin and his team. And so we wanted to kind of go through, Jeff will bring on the back end some specific cases that we've worked on. And we have a clip, if we can get it to work, from our latest abatement that we did that was a cleanup that Dustin's team worked on, I think in 2021, originally at an alfalfa market. And then we just got it cleaned up this week. And so it's a full story beginning to end and super fun for you guys to see. So hopefully I can get that link to work. So just wanted to start with the mission of what we do in code enforcement. We have been mandated to protect the health and safety of residents and visitors in our community, protect the livability of the community by assuring compliance with building, land use, on-site wastewater. Those violations that we work to bring into compliance, building is usually work without permits, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, structural. Land use can be anything from floodplain, wetland, fill and removal, to conditions of approval, to the whole gamut of things under the land use spectrum, commercial use and residential areas, that type of thing. And then on-site wastewater regulations is anything from failing septic, your neighbor's sewage is rolling onto your property, which we had last week in Terrebonne, to illegally installed permits, to RV occupation. Where is your sewage going? You're living in an RV. And then we do encourage voluntary compliance. That's always our goal, is to work with the homeowner. We give them specific guidelines for timelines, deadlines, resources of what they need to come into compliance. We can do pre-app meetings, bringing people in from all of the departments to make a plan on some of the bigger things to fix of what you need to do. It can be overwhelming, it can be complicated. Homeowners are responsible as homeowners, but sometimes they need a team to help explain what's going on, what they need to. Sometimes the violations are owners, that is a tenant issue, which you'll see some of those where owners live out of state or in a different area, not on the parcel, and the tenant has caused the violation. Some of the violations are owner caused. Some are inherited from previous owners. So you buy the parcel and now you're responsible for that in compliance. No, I didn't, sorry.
Is it down
It's
down
there.
arrow on the
There you go,
keyboard?
there, okay. Code enforcement was established in Deschutes County in 1994. At that time, the Board of County Commissioners brought the community team together. They wrote our first policy and procedures manual. It began the process in 94. We completed it in 95. We revised the manual in 97, 2014, 2021, and just recently in 2024. In 2021 was a pretty big lift. We revised the manual that year, and at that time, we also got funding approved from solid waste. So now solid waste will contribute funds to code enforcement annually. It's part of the tipping fees that they get. We get up to $200,000 annually, and it's strictly for solid waste abatement. So that is when we have gone through all of the due process in code enforcement. We have either gone to circuit court, justice court, administrative hearing. We have an order for abatement. County will go in and clean up the land for solid waste. We then lien the property, and then those funds are reestablished into our account after the property sells or the homeowner pays it off.
So that 200,000, if I can ask the question, it is, you reimburse that fund once you get the lien? Okay.
Yeah.
Very
They have, short of any catastrophe happening in their own budget, they have agreed to up to 5 years to contribute the 200,000. And then they'll cap it, then we'll reassess and see how much the funds have been reestablished or they're still pending. But another thing we can do is summary abatement for without a court order for public health and safety, such as sewage on the ground. We need to go in and abate it immediately, and we can do that without a court order and leave the property for that amount. Our manual is online for the public to reference and see. We're very transparent on our due process, what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. We do have prioritization that has been mandated by the Board of County Commissioners, our first. So we prioritize complaints. We are complaint driven. We are usually, complaints are received by public, neighbors, commissioners. staff can submit complaints during the course of their workday if it's public health and safety. And then the partnership that we have with Dustin and his team for cannabis specifically is new and has been just amazing and successful. First priority is violations that are imminent public health and safety. Those that come in, we will prioritize, do those first. Violations that are impact rivers, streams, floodplains, wetlands, solid waste, on-site wastewater, building code violations are third, unless any of those institute public health and safety, and then they go up to the first priority. And then land use violations, which are floodplain, lots of land use are approved by conditions of approval. So like the solar farms were approved by keeping one of their conditions of approval was to keep their trees alive for a barrier when all those trees have died. So now we just got a land use violation submitted that they weren't adhering to their conditions of approval. Again, we are so grateful for the contribution that you all did to us the last couple years. That has really just bolstered our partnership with the detectives, which we're so grateful for. We have met with Dustin and his team and our IT team and come up with some additional tools that he now gets reports if we get electrical permits for over 600 amps or greater. Also, any structurals that are 1,500 square feet with no residents, that could be red flags. So we work together on that.
I'm actually getting 400.
Oh, you are? Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And then also when Dustin calls us, his team, and says, hey, we're going to need you guys tomorrow, we'll all set aside anywhere from 1 to 3 staff members and we'll meet whatever he needs on boots on the ground. We're there as long as he needs us. It has been just a amazing partnership and one I'm really grateful for. And you'll see later, I have a slide showing that last one that we just did. And it just truly shows the beginning work all the way till last week. And it took years. It was impressive. This is our code enforcement team as it stands right now. We are currently hiring for an additional member. We have one lead who's in the middle, Dan in the green shirt, 3 code enforcement specialists, trying to get one more. And then we do have a deputy that is assigned to us part-time. She has been amazing for site visits, for issuing any notifications that we have. We did have a staff 3 years ago that he went to talk to the person about their weeds, noxious weeds, and had a gun pulled on him. And so since then, we've changed our policies and really utilize our deputies for safety. It's not the way that it used to be where we did lots of knock and talks, lots of, and we're out. I mean, the county's huge. So to have one of our staff members out by themselves, they're unarmed, they're just having conversations. We had a couple instances that we really realized the era has changed and we lean on our law enforcement. If there's any issues, she will come with us on site. If there's red flags, we work also with dispatch now to see any premise history. They'll let us know parcels that we really should not be going out on without assistance or not, just send law enforcement out. So that has changed the last couple of years. Our caseload is heavy right now. We have 474 new violations this year. We're on track to receive over 900 by the end of the year, which is a 21% increase from last year. And each specialist is managing about 68 properties. We have, I'm going to show you our data. We have 356 pending violations that we haven't even looked at yet. Our cases are coming in faster than we can manage them. You can see here that we do zoning. A lot of this is RV occupancy, land use violations, building code violations on site without approval. Solid waste. The weed program is noxious weeds. Just to clarify. And then we've had 9 properties that we've worked with Dustin and his team. And then Jeff has been most boots on the ground for all of them. Most of them, we have 2 specialists that have gone out. And so he's gonna share some pictures with you. We separated them by address and kind of status of what occurred and where we're at now.
So is there like more specific areas in the county than others where you're finding this?
For cannabis specifically?
Well, or, yeah,
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, they seem like we've had some south and Tumalo,
Majority of them right now are probably South County,
Yeah, okay.
but we have had a handful left in the Northern Bend area and then Alfalfa.
Okay.
Alfalfa slowed down a little bit.
Yeah,
okay.
northern Bend, Alfalfa, south.
Of the 900 some cases you've got, are those all like just people calling in and saying, hey, I think this is wrong?
Yes, lots of
Wow.
them are neighbor complaints. We do have some sheriff's department complaints if they get called out for domestic or something. If they see something, they'll turn in a case that way. Our deputy does turn in things if she sees things that are public health safety concerns.
Wow.
So that's a success, right? That.
Yeah.
That people are getting more involved with the
Absolutely.
community in Deschutes County. and-
Absolutely. They're aware that we exist. They're
Yeah.
aware that there are codes to adhere to. Education has been a huge piece of that. And then also, for just so you know that, so the complainant is anonymous while the case is open. When the case is closed, it is public record.
Mm.
And they know that when they do it, but oftentimes it's, we have some lighting violations. Lots of,
RV occupancy.
RV occupancy. And so that kind of case would be, you know, if it's, then there's there's 3 violations there typically, the RV occupancy, the unauthorized disposal, what's happening with their waste, and then sometimes solid waste component for junk on property is what they say. Some commercial use in residential areas, it's really expensive here to have a commercial business. Rent is expensive, so more people are opening more businesses in residential areas. And oftentimes they don't understand, they're not aware that that's not allowed, and so they'll be operating a business off there in a residential zone. Lots of mechanics, excavation, things like that are impacting their neighbors, but sometimes they don't realize. And then the complaint we hear often is, well, it's so expensive to rent a place for this. For our equipment or stuff like that. But I guess education is huge because people are understanding that we are here.
Mhm.
And so we really are trying to work on that a lot with public education is the codes exist, and so that just understand what's allowed and what's not.
So you get public education, so that's when you just have first encounters with them, or, because there's not anything that's sent to property owners.
No, so we've been utilizing our deputy, we're making flyers for her to pass out as she's in the community. We've been doing town halls for open houses with HOAs in the evenings. We'll invite people to come in, they're working on land use, and if we hear something, we'll have them come in for a pre-app and provide education that way. But we're wanting to be very approachable, part of the community. We love doing town halls to communities so they can ask us. We also teach classes to real estate agents to know. So when they're advertising, oftentimes somebody will buy something, it's advertised one way, but it's not necessarily a legal thing that it was advertised. And sometimes it's just because they didn't know. And sometimes it's just, so we try to provide some education to realtors that way as well.
So you say it's public record after the case is closed. Is it automatic public record or only if they do like a FOIA request?
So it's automatic. Well, twofold. So when we do our cases internally, if there's confidential things, we can save it as internal only, and that is not public unless it's public records request. But the more generic, like if somebody has something in there, like medical records included or evidence that way for medical hardships or something, that we wouldn't post that publicly, but the complaint is public, most documentation is public, just for one, history on the parcel, and two, we're just transparent with our program.
But you have to put the effort in to go and find it, find the record, right?
It's on dial, so if you
Oh, under
want,
what section?
It's documents.
documents.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see
Oh,
if,
interesting.
so we added a flag on dial. If a property is currently in code enforcement, you'll see a warning label, but you won't see any details on what it is. When the case is closed, our documents that we haven't manually configured to internal only will be posted in documents on dial.
Interesting, okay.
Right? Mr. Wood?
So typically we'll get a few weeks advance warning from Detective Miller and his team. Just to set aside some time on a specific day, we don't know where the location is, so that morning we usually get word, we'll go down to the various properties, and when we go down, our main concern is, you know, any plumbing, electrical, mechanical work that's been done without permit, so we usually go down with a couple of us, take a lot of pictures. We're also looking for, you know, any structural changes into any of the buildings that the growth is happening in. So it kind of involves a lot of legwork on the outset, and then it also involves quite a bit of legwork after the fact, just to kind of compare your pictures to what you're seeing in dial. If you go under permits, you'll see septic permits, mechanical, electrical, plumbing permits, building permits, land use permits, all sorts of stuff. So it's trying to just separate everything by date, see what's legal and what's not. So this example here down at Shady Lane in La Pine, so we were down there in August of 2023. There was 2 properties that involved the same owner. I didn't include any pictures from the other property. That was, Detective Miller could probably speak more to this. There wasn't much there, but there was some illegal, I want to say it's kind of a headquarters maybe for the whole operation. There's illegal outbuilding. There was stuff built in septic areas that needed to be reserved for a reserve drain field in case his original drain field was failed, unpermitted electrical work. So that property on Pinedale was more kind of just violations dealing slamming. So we have, you know, been in contact with the property owner. He's on what's a voluntary compliance agreement, the VCA. The one with Carol and the coworker expires for this property December 1st. And then mine expires January 1st. So basically the voluntary compliance agreement is basically a legal document that gets reviewed from our legal team. It's basically a contract that they're admitting to the violation, and they're given a certain amount of time to rectify the situation. If they're in, you know, making progress, we can give them a little bit of an extension. If not, usually we issue a citation to go through the administrative. So in this case, violations included the work without permits and setback violations, which I can show on other pictures. But if you notice here, just all the wiring, the lighting, duct work, there's just a lot of stuff that's. So the pictures on the outsides, on the right and the left, so the heat pump units, you're gonna kind of see these on a couple other properties too, but just concealing massive amounts of them, just doing their job to keep temperature control inside the outbuilding. The picture in the center is the outbuilding where the grow occurs. Well, that one was probably pretty difficult to see because there was the overhang and then there's a fence, as you can see in the picture on the right.
I had no idea there was 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought there was 10, but 10. When I walked around that corner.
I
was
love
surprised.
hearing yours.
So none of that was, we had 0 permit record for this.
Well, their power bill must be like $10,000 a month or something. At the
Yeah.
road red flag.
So more pictures here, just kind of the electrical panel. This one's actually
Pretty clean.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Very big, probably the thing
This is a pretty sophisticated operation from what I was hearing when we were down there. A lot of plants, a lot of rooms, a lot of mechanical work, a lot of duct work.
Hydro.
Yeah, if you have extra that jump in. Please, because we
Yeah.
want
He showed you some pretty pictures.
Yeah, yeah, these are good ones.
This probably is one of the cleanest grows I've gone to, and this was all hydroponic.
That looks pretty clean.
It was really clean, and I don't know if you have a photo of this, some of his plants were 8.5, 9 feet tall.
Dang.
He wasn't trailing down.
Inside?
Inside
Wow. And what's on the left? What are those three
water.
water tanks? Oh, okay, okay.
That's how it feeds the plants with nutrients.
It pumps out of there, yeah.
So we have 2 cases on those 2 properties down there in the line. So in December, we got called out to 2 properties, one on Tumblr Place. The Pink House, everyone's probably familiar with that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, that was a grow?
No way.
Yeah.
You know what it was
You know that,
supposed to be?
It's not a very good one.
Not high quality.
That's what we did at the Shoots Junction.
Yeah, right on the highway. Yeah.
I love that we all know that.
It wasn't supposed to be a grow initially, right?
So fun story,
Oh my
he painted it
gosh.
pink on purpose. Because he was battling with the county and landscape management, we can tell you what color you can paint it out there adjacent to a highway because the building already existed. That wasn't inside the code, so he did that on purpose.
Well, then he threatened doing a lease to a strip club.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
And he didn't allow it.
Yeah.
So not a strip club, but a grow.
So does Fagan still in there? or can you- yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So this place is kind of.
Big was not.
Yeah, I
Yes,
wouldn't imagine.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
It was his property.
Yes, the tenant, right?
Yeah, so both of them were tenant operated, the one down the road as well. So this one was kind of a mess. I think there was mold in this house and.
This one doesn't look as clean already.
No.
Yeah.
So everything was removed. Carolyn had this case, my coworker, and they were able to get everything done and she ended up closing the case. May this year, so it was a pretty quick turnaround.
And to their credit, they've been working with us to get it into compliance on both properties, I have to say.
Well, on the first property, I understand like you guys had an open case for multiple years, but we're able to get on property and penalty road.
Oh.
So that's the other flip side of their partnership that's worked out really great, yeah, thanks for that.
Just some more pictures here. Obviously concerning the open electrical panel,
And paper.
but that's, wait till you see what's coming up. This is nothing.
We started out.
Kind of some after pictures, just, they got it cleaned up.
That's the Pink House?
Yeah.
Wow.
Tight.
Yeah.
A lot better.
Was the owner on-prem or was it a remote?
So
He lives
Down
down
the
the
road.
street.
He lives
So
down the road.
he lives down the
Beside
street,
her.
he owns multiple properties.
Yeah.
Right in that
He-
area.
He leased out 2 properties. The person who was doing the growing that leased the property lived in town.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Person that leased the property was.
Lived in town.
Well, this is the second one, same property owner, tenant operated. This is the building that it was located in and it's on the far right of the building. One was a little nicer. Again, you can see the lighting, electrical.
And how long do you think this had been going on for?
My investigation on this one shows he's doing it for at least 2 to 3 years. Roughly, don't quote me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing.
They evicted a tenant that was doing it, right? That's the story I heard when I got there.
And this is kind of the after, just kind of converted back into garage. It did have, this was the one that had a bunch of old cars.
On the other half of the shop.
Yeah. Kind of just converted it back to what it was. And then this one, February this year, so detached garage. I just talked to my coworker, it was a outbuilding that was being used to dry process cannabis from an offsite grow. So,
Is that a pool?
yes.
Yeah. The baby.
That a dinosaur?
Nice.
Gives me some ideas.
Got some extra greenhouse. It's not a bad idea.
So this one, this was actually a campsite at one point.
Uh,
They had field grow hemp. Initially, and if I'm stepping on your toes.
No, please, we want.
There's Brian in the greenhouse.
Please don't.
Well, no, so they had, so the field grow, this person's also associated with a OLCC grow.
Huh?
So, they had a shop on the property, very large shop, they were using for primarily drying and hanging. Originally, what I believe would be hemp for a lot of it, there was stuff so high up in the rafters you couldn't get to it. What we found when we did this was in the shop, we actually didn't find an active grow at this location. It was, there was so much marijuana in storage in the shop, you could smell it 100 feet away at the road.
Oh, wow.
So, the claim was it was hemp. The testing came back
Hot.
extremely hot, not lightly over, really hot. But my understanding was, and you guys can answer this, but my understanding was this, this building was put up with the intention of putting a grow there.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And they were denied their power to that grower or a mechanical permit. One of those two, they were denied to that. He ended up putting the pool in there for his kids, you know, a handful of kids. So then it became a storage and there was a lot of soil.
There's a
and
porta
things.
pipe in there.
No, oh, yeah. So I'll let you continue on
Yeah,
that, but
please,
that,
thank
No,
you.
that's good.
I love it.
Oh, so this is a good example of this. When we come out, we're just looking and just kind of verifying what's there. So any mechanical, plumbing and electrical that we're trying to see. So.
So anything over 600 amps electrical requires plan review. And I think that's where they got hijacked, is they didn't submit their electrical plan for review by the plans examiner.
is that 600 combined or 601 panel?
601 pound. Requires plan review.
And so do the electricians tip you off on that?
So when they apply for an electrical permit, if they don't tell us that it's 600, when we go out on site, that we'll see it at inspection.
But that's only if they submit an application for a permit,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so we wouldn't know that unless Detective Miller calls us out and we look at the panel and go,
Right.
well, that's,
And I believe this guy was trying to do a 600, 200 to the greenhouse, 400 to the shop, was my thought, splitting the two up.
meters.
So then come to find out this garage had been modified, so Carolyn's working with the property owner to get engineering done just to make sure that that garage is safe with the wall being removed. That's kind of the process that we're at right now. Just kind of some examples of photographs we take, just propane tank, mechanical work that's been added. But in April this year, we're down in Manzanita for a grow operation in DRW. Violations included work without permits, both electrical and mechanical. So the owner was given until today, ironically, to respond to my pre-enforcement notice. Haven't heard a word, so
Oh.
send out a 30-day warning tomorrow. And Deputy Connor's the one who usually delivers those. Haven't heard a word.
Do they think it's just gonna go away or?
Well, you know, they have legal issues to deal with,
Yeah.
we're just trying to get everything removed or committed.
This particular shop was odd because it was a roughly 1,500 square foot shop, not a single roll up door.
How do you get in?
Two
Just a
man,
man door?
2 man doors, everything's man door, and if you see those roll up doors there in the pictures, to the left and to the right where it rolls up, there was 3 rooms and those doors separated each room. He would roll the doors up and move his plants from
It's purpose
stage,
built.
purpose built for staging,
Oh,
for different staging of growing and lighting.
So that's a good point. That Detective Miller brought up, so we did notice that those were there, but not on the original plans that was submitted to our building department. So in that case, you know, we do confer with our building official, and be like, hey, this is what we're seeing. You know, kind of get his concerns about it. In this case, he wasn't too concerned about it.
It's all internal work, so nothing structural on that external.
Did he have all mechanicals though? Cause he had like 4 conditioners also. I don't think he had a mechanical for that.
No, so none of the mechanical or electrical stuff that we had any record of.
There's two. This one's great.
Yeah.
This is a great.
So there's a large ag building being used as a grow, yeah, there's gonna be some interesting pictures here. Transformer that you see in the picture there, toward the end, a lot of people have cleared out. This thing was starting to melt. So given the amount of electrical work that was done here, we actually contacted our building official. He sent out one of our electrical inspectors. And I don't know if there was some communication between them, but our building official ended up coming out as well, because there's just so much stuff out there. So toward the end of our time there, our building official was on the phone with the power company to come out and cut the power. Deputy Connor was out there. There was a bunch of fertilized soil. She was kind of kicking around, noticed it started to smoke. And small fire started. And
What?
that day in particular, it was cool, but it was very windy day. So that could have just been a disaster.
Wow, yeah.
There.
So it was odd, because when we did the investigation on this one, flew it with thermal. And this, in the area was glowing, and we thought it's really weird, it's glowing, there's nothing there. There were old greenhouses that were in that area. We thought, well, was it rocks? There was a weird dry well there too. We thought, maybe is there an underground bunker? Like, what is this, right?
Glowing.
So after, like you said, we hung out for the power company. When they did, we were looking down, I'm walking through some of these areas and I'm like, this is ash. And so I went over to a pile and I put my foot in and it sunk 2 feet. And when I pulled it out, it started crackling and lit.
Oh, my.
And so. we
Just
had-
hot soil.
It was decomposing target,
Yeah.
nutrient soil.
Yeah,
So, but you're right, it wasn't super hot that day, it was warm.
I mean, hot like nutrient.
It was- oh, yes, but I'm saying as
Yeah.
far as the weather that day, it wasn't super hot, but it was probably 30 miles an hour wind, right? So Redwood Fire came out, said with the moisture in and it's all, this was out in, northwest Redmond, so it was all very sage, juniper, very dry climate, and he said if it was about 2 weeks later, it would have been a huge fire hazard. So they put about 1,000 to 1,500 gallons on that, so
Wow.
to get rid of it, but that solved our problem of what the heat signature was.
Yeah.
They ended up having to replace the whole transformer.
So after talking to the power company on this one, they had actually removed the power meter 2 years prior, I think, because of the same wiring issues. And he thought that they had replaced this transformer at that time. He put in an order to try to replace this one, because of what you see there. And a little education, I don't know a lot about these, but what he told me was essentially these things are full of oil. And when they draw way too much power, the oil boils and the oil boils up. Where you see that dripping out is a rubber seal essentially, and that seal melts. And so when you see it coming out of a terminal like that, it's usually because of that. He said if they go dry, they get too hot and they'll blow the tops off of them and they'll cause fires. So they took the meter on this one at your guys' request.
Wow.
So again, as you saw for the Shady Lane photographs, kind of the same thing, overhang, bunch of heat pump units going into the building. Picture on the right is where the grow was.
Pretty clean.
Yeah, the outside is, yeah.
Yeah, this is a very interesting.
I don't know the AC could it so with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. This one looked like the Enchanted Forest inside.
Yeah. So there were actually 2 bedrooms in there, so there were people living in there, right?
Yes.
That's a legit CO2 setup too. I mean, that's a big tank.
Yes. Their bill, I want to see they were almost.
What is that used for?
What's that?
They pump CO2 into the room for the plants.
Oh,
When they're
They're like a
vegging, when
certain-
they're vegging, right?
Well, you kind of ramp it up and then bring it down. It goes from like, depends on your growing style. You can have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 ppm of CO2 in the room to
okay,
kind of act like the outdoor environment.
right, okay,
Because that's what they feed on.
right.
When we go into these with our SWAT teams, and you guys probably have it in your guys' grows and you guys have seen it, but like when we go in these SWAT teams, it's hard to breathe in those rooms sometimes. So we spend a lot of time going through.
You could pass out.
Yeah, so we'll go in there, we shut down all of the tanks that we can. open doors and ventilate it, usually give it time to breathe before we go in.
Yeah,
Did you ever take respirators with you?
for stuff like that, I would, but
Yeah.
that's moldy.
Oh, my
There's
goodness.
quite a bit of mold.
Yeah.
I wouldn't walk in that room.
That was
No.
the tandem we saw just a couple slides ago.
Yes.
That looks so nice.
There's probably what, 5 or 6 rooms, separate rooms in there they reached.
Yeah. And they were framing out more.
It's just, you can see the wiring that was the catwalks, the ceiling, and then the electrical panels were just. Definitely caught the attention of our electrical inspector.
That's scary.
And can you tell us how you were tipped off on this one?
This one is thank you to the way that we learned how to investigate these three guys' things. So, when we remember when we were talking about how we hadn't had a lot of communication at first with code, trying to figure out how to follow up with some of these complaints, vice versa. Like she had mentioned earlier, their IT guy and some other people came over and actually talked with our analyst and said, hey, here's our system, this is how you search it, this is what we're gonna do. And she ended up going through and just finding out a ton of prior marijuana complaints over the last, since 2019.
Oh, she had ammo.
So we found, we have a list that we're still going through. Some of them are 2019-20, but doesn't mean that they're not still going. A lot of them would come for 2 and they're gone, right? It was an old complaint, whatever, but this one was in the middle of nowhere. We got a prior complaint, like, hey, let's just go drive by this thing. So we went and drove by it. It was a 40-acre parcel. You couldn't barely see building from the road. We got a very faint odor. We could see the frame out, what we assumed were air conditioners under it. This one also was very barricaded. All of the doors and windows have rebar cages over them. So we had to use some special tools to get into this one. But we, at that point, then we ran power and found it. So that we ended up getting this one based on just the relationship that we developed over this last year because of referrals and everything else. So that's how we got this one.
Right. So
And it was operational when you got there, or it was?
Yeah, three of the 5 rooms had growing plants. No, 4 or 5.
and a warrant allowed you to, I'll say break in, I'm sure that's not the correct term.
Just fully entered.
Okay, so the warrant allowed you, okay, got it.
So we went to the property, we got what we could at the first point, but then it was such a big property, so at that point, we wrote a warrant for aerial surveillance. And so we did a bunch of aerial surveillance,
Does that have a warrant for aerial surveillance? Even though airspace is.
drone only. Airplanes and helicopters. are free.
Oh, so you use that.
They outlawed that with that Kylo case.
No, the warrant though.
With a warrant.
The warrant, yeah. So airplanes, helicopters are free game. Those are all air free.
And those are expensive to operate, so,
Yeah.
Drone's a lot more efficient.
yeah.
So, and we can still fly drones without warrants over public areas. That we have access to, like, so public lands we can, roadways we can, a lot of rivers we can, certain,
Take imagery from there or whatever.
yeah, whatever we can see. But we need to be really careful, we don't want to abuse our non-warrant, right?
Yeah.
So we make sure we fly over areas that we're allowed, but we have authority to fly over.
Yeah.
But yes, so then once we gained what we needed there, then we wrote paper and we were able to take the whole property.
Wow, excellent.
This was hard though, because there was a door, a man door in the middle of the shop that was actually completely framed over. And when we had a breaching rug, which is essentially a bottom cabinet that ran on it, it went to go through that door and it pushed a whole wall into a grow room because it was framed over. Those are the mechanical and the frame and structural issues that we have. So.
Wow.
Alright, so the
Wow,
last one.
you all have been busy, you need a better PR agency. None of this has made the news.
Well, actually, I had, Domo,
Yucca tunnel.
Manzanita, Yucca, those are all the new. Yeah. So the last one here was a big grow out in alfalfa that was opened with us in September of 2021. So there was 49 greenhouses and the cartel was involved in this one. So just a little background, the property owner lived in Cannabis, Utah. And this case was reassigned to me after the other code enforcement officer left. Tried to reach out to the property owner, no luck, so I finally sent a letter to the address that I had in Dial at Cannabis. She got right back to me, which was great. She came out here that spring, would have been 2023. So we walked the property, she wanted to get it cleaned up.
Was she aware what was going on?
They never are. They
Check your
never
bank
are.
account.
She claims no,
Yeah.
but,
She's driving a new car.
Private jet.
Yeah.
so we went out there spring of 23. She had a guy living out there who was basically, I think, kind of doing a work for
Here, this like
rent.
little shot he was living.
So just progress checks with him and with her. So she came back out this spring and just nothing was done. There was a few things that were cleaned up, but luckily he got all of these bottles off the property. Imagine he took those.
They're worth 10 cents a piece.
Thousands, right?
Really?
Oh, yeah, that's the only thing you're basically. So she was done. I kind of will backtrack. So in 2023, I gave her. It's kind of a year. Like, I'll give you a year. It's a lot of work. We'll see what we can do.
A lot there, looks like.
Time.
Guys, this is
49
just for context, so there's little huts here, but there were camps. A camp here where people were living, that people have been brought in illegally to work the grow.
So this is like a traffic.
There was, yes,
Yeah.
there was camps
This is the
here.
big one, if
I have the news link on it. I can get it to work to play. There was camps here. This was a pool. And then there, I think Jeff wasn't there, a couple camps here. And then maybe up on this ridge
Yeah.
Where
There was like an
people were-
RV. It was kind of like the headquarters.
where people were living, and you'll see pictures, but the water was their drinking water, I think they were giving them water and eggs. There was eggshells everywhere.
How many
They were
people?
illegally there.
There was over 25 to 30 people over here.
Wow.
Damn.
And
I
most
think
of them
if I can get the link to work, we have that news article.
So after the year expired, basically, she just knew that this wasn't gonna get cleaned. And so I kind of gave her, said, hey, I can take you to an administrative hearing. If the hearings officer finds in our favor, we'll ask for an abatement on the property. And then we do have people that can come out and clean up these things, which Central Oregon Biosolutions. So she was agreeable to that with the lien on the property. We were out there meeting, and she said she was quoted 2021 that a guy could do it for $20,000. And we both just kind of had to stop, where Eric and I, the guy that runs Central Oregon Biosolutions, like, hey, this is not gonna be $20,000 job. It's been a lot more. So she was aware of it. So she agreed. We had the hearing on May 14th. The hearings officer did find in our favor. She was agreeable to the abatement process. So additional violations that were out there, unpermitted electrical work and structural modifications to an outbuilding. So there was some residual stuff that was left on there, but the tenant had some friends that were kind of in and out of there, so a lot of that stuff kind of got.
It's a big grow.
Yeah,
Do you know how much the abatement was?
I do. We'll show you at the end. I have
Okay,
all
all
this
right,
stuff.
okay, keep me in suspense.
So what I could see when I started this investigation, what I could see from the neighboring property were 3 greenhouses. And yeah, so then I repositioned on another property, and I was able to see about another 5 or 6 greenhouses. Those are the ones that are on the southern portion below there.
Those 100-footers?
100-footers. Yeah, a couple smaller ones, but most of them are 100-footers.
Yeah.
So I wrote paper into it to go hit it, and I was like, hey, this is a big property, there's probably at least maybe 10 greenhouses out there. I said, but before we hit it in a couple weeks, I'm gonna go fly it, because I just want to make sure that I get good video for the SWAT team, so they know how to set up. I got up there and I just looked at it, oh no. So, yeah, this is,
Wow. See through the,
so, but the way we got that pretty picture on the beginning of that article that you saw was what we did on these because of the greenhouses. So Southern Oregon is bulldozing greenhouses, and we as a county aren't doing that because
They're bulldozing?
yeah, they're cheaply built greenhouses. They're 2x4s, 2x6s, metal rods, PVC pipe. They're garbage, they're not safe. Yeah, hoop houses, but essentially what's happening is like, so they're doing it down there. We tried to see if we might be able to do it better. It wasn't gonna fly with county code or county legal because of the way that we normally deal with unpermitted structures. So what we did on this one is we made the decision, we just cut visqueen, pulled visqueen on all of them. And by doing that, we figured if they do decide to civilly sue us for damaging their property, we can buy some visqueen. Right, so, and the visqueen is something they replace every year anyway.
So,
So it's not like it's really causing damage, and that's what made it able for us to really eradicate those. But it turned out to be a great picture after we did it, right? So we did it, and then I was like, hey, put that drone up. And let's get some.
yeah.
And I don't know if that link plays.
I mean, they are
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah,
That's-
Whoa.
with some of them that aren't cut, those were living quarters.
What time of the year is this? Like August?
This was August.
Yeah.
End of August, beginning of September. Some of the ones, I guess the top ones, the top three that has a smaller white section on it. That one, most of those were like living quarters. And they were also using a couple of them to grow corn and vegetable food themselves.
So this is the one that there was a lot of traffic workers.
Correct.
And they were let go and
Correct.
whatever, deported or helped.
Yeah, we had, I can say all of them, there
There was 2 arrests on this, right?
yes, Denise Johnson and Robert Sheeler. Denise Johnson was there on the property, we prosecuted her, everything went through fine. Robert Sheeler ran to, I think, Costa Rica, went out of the country for over a year and a half. Got caught in the border, I ended up flying down to Houston to transport him back.
Nice.
But that one was adjudicated this last year too.
So they're in
The
the
problem
process now.
The problem was those were the locals that really facilitated what happened here as far as the cartel style portion of it. It's couldn't prove who it was.
And they weren't willing to
Can't
give out
touch
any
that.
information for a lower sentence or?
No, they didn't have a lot of it, because they would have contact with one person, another person would show up with materials, another
Yeah.
person would show up with laborers. But we did have a handful of people, what's that?
They were the point people on it here though.
Yeah, they were the point people here locally, and we did have people on this property, a handful of them tell us that they are here with their dads via coyote to get them.
Oh my gosh.
So we had people that were there, we had a family with kids that were like, I'm working off mine, then I gotta work off my wife, and I gotta work off my kid.
Oh my God.
So, but yeah, and which in that case, in the humanitarian side of it, it was nice to be able to get all those people out of this. The problem was they left, and I don't know what their ties were and what they had on them and their history at home, I don't know. They may have ended up in Washington or something, I don't know, and that we couldn't be tapped on.
And the 2 that were arrested, are they going through the system now?
Yes. Yes. Robert Sheeler might be, well, they're all adjudicated, so Denise Johnson already took her police shirt to get her time, she's done. Robert Sheeler, was sentenced, I think she might be out now. They're both probably still on probation in this case, but I think they're both out.
Did they show remorse?
Yes.
Did they?
To an extent, I mean, both of them were local white guys that were like, got out of hand, which I totally agree with. But when I say got out of hand, both of them talked to them, it's like, yeah, we agreed to let them on the property, and next thing you know, it was more people and more greenhouses and more pools and more, and so got out of hand, and then they didn't have to like think much about it, so. I'm not saying that they're the victim.
Yeah.
And these were felonies, obviously. I mean, if you're flying down to Houston to get them extradited them back
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yep.
Human trafficking?
So you have to have a victim for human trafficking,
Wow.
and to hold on to these victims for 3 years for prosecution.
So what were the charges that got them?
Manufacture.
That was it? There was enough teeth to do that?
Manufacture, and then, and part of the reason, so he had a statewide or a countrywide felony warrant with full extradition for all the United States. What got him that, she was here, she was processed, and everything was fine. He skipped his court date and left, and so that judge looked and said, the weight of this case, the people that influenced, the human trafficking portion and everything, that's why he put such an extensive warrant out for him. Funny thing, he actually got arrested at one point down in, crossing the border, and they released him. Because they didn't want to hold him, even though, and it was, they said COVID at the time, and it was a good year after COVID, year and a half after COVID. But then the next time, and after talking with him, because I couldn't use a lot of it in the prosecution, but like talking to him on the plane and stuff, when we're transporting him back, he was down in Mexico and he came up to the border and he's like, man, I tried to cross at a non-checkpoint, but it was so scary that I couldn't, so I just went across thinking I'd get in like I did last time.
Wow,
Gosh.
But-
wow.
We put the clip in here for you guys just for interest when it originally broke.
News Channel 21 reported last night about a major police drug raid. Police say they found a large, allegedly outdoor illegal marijuana grow in Alfalfa. It's believed to be the largest such bust in Deschutes County history. Carly Keaton is here with more. Carly, what do we know so far?
No, the Deschutes County Illegal Marijuana Enforcement Team says several $1 million worth of marijuana was being grown on the property, which is near Dawes and Alfalfa Market Road. There were nearly 50 greenhouses with more than 9,200 plants and 2,800 pounds of processed marijuana. Officials believe it was operated by a Mexican drug cartel. The deputy sergeant for Deschutes County Illegal Marijuana Enforcement says this operation was extraordinary and very sophisticated. About 20 people were found working on the grow site. They've been identified as Mexican immigrants who were illegally trafficked and forced to work. Officials say the workers were living in primitive conditions with limited shelter and resources.
Yesterday or the day before, I don't think we were expecting to walk into a facility that large of an operation. And there were a lot of people there, and it kind of turned our criminal investigation now into more of a humanitarian mission than really a criminal investigation. So our goal is to identify kind of the head of the snake and work our way to find out where that person is.
Workers were detained, then released. Law enforcement has been watching the property for 2 years, but says now was time for the raid because the grow is affecting the Alfalfa community. Vanderkamp says the operation had been using thousands of gallons of water as well as pesticides on the plants. The Deschutes County Illegal Marijuana Enforcement Team is continuing with the leads both in the U.S. and internationally.
The news people are so young now.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Because Bob Shaw retired.
Yeah.
So here's some photographs that were taken before the cleanup. So just the garbage, the PVC pipe, sandbags, lumber, this clean. Picture on the right, so there's just a pit that was originally designated as an area for potential area for a septic system, but now since that's all been disturbed, if someone does buy the property, that's for sale, or going to be for sale, they want to put in a septic system, they have to do a whole nother site evaluation, but a lot of juniper limbs in there, just a bunch of garbage. One of the camps in the upper left-hand corner. This was the outbuilding that Angie was talking about. This is where the tenants were living the last couple of years, part of the cleanup. So this, I'm not sure the condition during the bust or what was in this building, but it becomes a solid waste violation now. There was, if you look at that picture on the right, off to the left of it, they had probably 30, 40 feet away from that outbuilding, they had just a pit where they were dumping human waste, and there was like a decomposed pig's head in there.
Oh.
So it smelled pretty bad.
These camps, I'm sure, I mean, they had stayed like that since you guys were there, so when we got there, it was like a snapshot in time, you could just tell it was exactly the way it was after you guys raided it. But it fills, it's interesting to walk there, because they were living in this, and then, as Jeff was saying, there's thousands of water bottles everywhere, and eggshells.
More pictures of the garbage. Of extra vehicles that were on the property, luckily, the friend of the tenant was able to get those out of there, so I think there was roughly 19, but managed to get them. So that would cost the property owner a lot more cleanup costs if they would have to. Then some after pictures.
Wow.
That is the big area, the two pictures, upper left and center, just the big area where you saw all the hoop houses.
Wow.
It's amazing. I mean, they do such great work. Picture on the right, he went in there with, machinery and got out as much as he could, and then he just kind of went in by hand and got out all the rest. But it took him all day to do that.
But these are new photos too, from
Yeah.
June and July.
Just wrapped up.
Yeah.
This property is beautiful. I mean, there are some spots in there that could be a home site, are the views, and owner just got, water rights. 13 acres of water rights,
They got 13 on that.
did they?
Well, I'm
Oh,
asking
yeah, I think they got 13 acres of water rights.
Because they had canopy greenhouse water rights is all they had.
Okay, no, she was working on it, and, cause her intent now is to sell, is why she wanted to get it. done.
Wow.
So we're to the left of the outbuilding that you see in the upper left-hand corner where the human waste and the pig head was. They took all that stuff to just a different location on the property, dug up people, threw it in there, covered it with lime. Buried it. So $103,000.
Wow.
That property.
Oh, not the 20K.
Yeah.
We're worth it.
Wow.
So 12 days, 736 man hours. Total loads to landfill 46, unfortunately, and I'll give Eric a lot of credit. He knows everybody in the solid waste recycling industry here
Oh.
in town, and he tried really hard to see if he could get a lot of that material recycled. He just couldn't do it. So the only thing he was able to really recycle was just a load of metal and a load of appliances, basically. But there was a ton of rebar that they had to pull up, so he's able to get that out of there and recycle it.
And how big is a bio bucket?
I got like
Oh, okay.
Most of it, the human waste was in that hit,
Pit,
was
which was-
substantial.
Very, yeah.
Wonder if I
That took a
felt
day.
about that rent windfall after they got them built.
Yeah.
You know, I sent her the invoice and as she didn't wish too much. I was
When
just
can
like,
I-
no.
I think you guys' estimate was about 150 there, right?
Originally they thought 115.
Oh, so they came in pretty close.
Yeah.
And is there any other fines that she'll have to pay? Like, does the lien on the property include anything other than that 104,000?
She had to pay $1,000 fee at the end of the year.
1,000?
Just 1,000.
That just covers the cost of our hearing. Because she came into compliance. If she wouldn't have, then she would have had additional fines.
Yeah, investigated that for like over a year, 2 years, 2 years.
So that's the
She
interesting
had
part of this.
years.
Yeah. The interesting part is all the work you guys did, all the work that I mean, this is a dynamic story of how many people worked on this.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of cool too, because there's this one way in and out of that property. So kind of there's a house as you're driving down the easement. I checked in with the guy, kind of let him know, you're seeing all this traffic, this is why.
We're
And
supposed to be.
Yeah, and then Eric, head of Bio Solutions, talked to the guy too, and they were just really appreciative that his crew was in. It was really stressful for a number of years.
Did they know? Did that neighbor know what was going on?
I think.
I'm
that's
sure.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
Both of those
Yeah.
neighbors they still call me today.
Really?
Sure.
I bet they're
I'm
thankful.
sure.
Wow.
Yeah, now they call me because they're thankful.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
not call me because you were thankful for a while.
Yeah.
Well, the tenant that she allowed on there was doing a whole nother slew of stuff that.
And he was wanting to set up a camp for recovering addicts.
Oh, that's a good place for it.
Yeah,
And the
Nice way
neigh-
to say that.
That's what they said, and the neighbors weren't happy, and I don't blame them.
no.
Yeah,
That's the reason I kept getting phone calls.
Well, and the cars in the middle, so he was an entrepreneur because he had worked with a local tow company and was renting that land out to them to store their cars there. So he was, I mean, he had all kinds of things going on.
Oh, the tenant,
The tenant
oh.
that was supposed
I
to
didn't know he
be
saw cars.
helping the owner. Yeah,
yeah, and then they left with a Connex container, because the tenant owed this other guy money, and then they stole her keys to the property, I mean.
Yeah.
It's just the crowd you run, I
Dramatic.
think that's. wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
But she's just like, okay, it's part of it.
meeting the tenant, you would not shake his hand and think this would go well. You would- If you did think that, you should, I question that.
Yeah, I met him in 2023 and just seeing him a year later was like, okay. People move out the well pump, so there was no water on the property. He just looked like an ass.
Well, he was selling water off of there. He had trailers with water jugs coming out there and they were pumping water onto
Oh, God.
those trailers and.
Don't burn them or what.
So the landowner doesn't get charged with anything.
Landowner wasn't here, she leased it, so, but like you said, not getting charged anything, that's again on them. I think the fact that she allowed them to abate it, fix the actual problem, and that they're taking that out of the sale of the property.
Yeah.
It's, she's losing $100,000 essentially, right? Of her property, so there is a penalty there, but. like,
No legal
Bob
consequence.
Explained it
Yeah,
there, the way
yeah.
I understand it is essentially compliance means that if she was not compliant, it would be half the price of that property, if not more, right?
Yeah.
Be a much larger lien and a much larger process, I guess.
And they were, she was cannabis.
And could you ask her how much she was getting in rent?
She was getting $2,000.
Oh, well, that's not so much. It's not like 50K a month.
It's really a
I
big bill.
interviewed her, but I interviewed her over the phone.
Okay.
And her family members.
It's not enough for everything. That's
Yeah.
right.
And my analyst has a different view on this. She thinks that she knew a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Talking with her, I think that she knew some, but I don't think she knew the extent. So I think we got it, but.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for your support. Honestly, it's big, much appreciated. And it's been just a pleasure working with you and your team and how we can learn from each other and work together and do some awesome things in our community.
I found it interesting on the education piece. About 20 years ago, I was having a huge problem with people buying properties and then brand new starting illegal stuff. And I go, what are you doing? Oh, my realtor said.
Yeah.
So I started doing 10 classes a year
Yeah.
for CE credits
Okay.
because I thought I need to get through to the realtors.
Yeah.
And it turned around within 5 years of giving those classes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the redundancy of talking to these groups of realtors,
Yeah.
but now I go have people come in and go, oh, my realtor said I need to come in and see you because
Yeah.
I want to do
It's
X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
It's getting ahead of the problem like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have
That's
a
cool. Makes a difference.
example.
Yeah.
Brothers contributed, they moved here from Idaho, they pitched in their funds, they bought 2 houses on a property. They came in to get a wood stove permit for one of their houses, and it's like, that's a barn, that's not a house. And they're like, but my realtor said there's 2 houses, and it's like, you bought a house and a barn that was illegally converted to a house, and so heartbreak, I mean, it's just heartbreaking, and
Well, yeah, because they've made their commission, they're out of there, and then I'm finding this person who was told they could do it.
it's awful.
It was terrible.
Yeah, so we're trying, and that was 9 years ago, and we see it sometimes, not as often. We try to get ahead of it. And the message to you guys, before you ever buy anything, come down to community development. We'll help you research, study, like zoning, like let you know what is allowable and what's permitted. And it's free. I mean, if friends, family that you guys know, please tell them to come because we've seen some heartbreak. And it is awful.
Well, I'm a realtor.
Oh.
And no, having on a few land, I have had clients that's, we wanna do this little bed and breakfast and have drink. You really need to talk to code enforcement and planning, right? So
Absolutely.
there are
It's
some
such a
realtors
great resource.
Yeah.
And realtors are, I mean, we've been teaching classes, they're welcome. It's so fun because then you can give the education to the community and
Right.
that's what it's about.
There is a way to, right, too, right? I mean, this big trend of barn dominiums or shop
Not always,
condos or whatever. that-
not always. It depends. Zoning, every property is so specific. So sometimes.
And of course, if a realtor says, that's not legal, that's not in code, and then the owner decides to do it anyway, you know, what can we
Absolutely.
do,
Nothing.
right? But if that was what you were finding before, then realtors, oh, you can do anything, well, sure, just take the water or build.
Well, and as the landowner, when I bust them story, and
Right,
it's
right.
somewhere in the middle, but.
Part of it isn't always intentional, it's not intentional
Yeah.
necessarily, it's just an unknowing,
Yeah,
you know, and so
ignorance.
the education
Yeah.
is important,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Great.
Guys.
Okay, now we're on to public comments. Would you like to say anything? I know you're here with, Jeremy, but you're,
No, it's been very educational.
okay,
And it's been good to hang out at these couple meetings and I'll keep coming to them.
good, yay. And would you like to say anything or contribute or introduce yourself?
I just learned a lot.
How about, anyone online? Andrew, Phil, Matt? Any comments? I mean, Andrew and Matt are not, quote, public, but Phil is, I suppose. No, okay, and anyone else in the room? Okay. Next steps is our meeting. Tentatively scheduled for October 21st. I am out of town that day.
We're always out of town at our next
I know.
scheduled meeting.
That day I'll be in Athens,
Oh, goodness, how fun.
but I am
You can
available.
call out, right?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you're gonna call it.
The 28th of October is good for me, or somebody else can take chair for the 21st.
I'm fine with it. Thanks for having.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye. The 20th of October.
That was my proposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Good for you?
I'll make it work.
Okay,
Did you say the 20th or 28th?
28th, a week later.
Following Monday?
Yeah, yeah. And Andrew and Matt, October 28th, thumbs
That
up,
works for me.
okay. Andrew,
That works for me.
okay, great. And Phil, come and join us.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, you bet. All right, I think that
One
is,
other thing, I didn't
Oh,
put
yes.
it on here. So the next meeting topic, we briefly
Oh.
discussed having at this meeting, but for a variety of reasons didn't happen. Is it was requested a present from CAP members, at the last meeting, a presentation from behavioral health. Providing information on substance abuse trends in Deschutes County. So that's our one topic for next time. I'm meeting with them next week. We have Jessica Jacks, who's been here before, lots of times before us. But also Dr. Litton with behavioral health who will be here. She wasn't able to be here this time,
Right.
so that's why we scheduled for the October meeting. So they just wanted to check in to see if there's anything more specific on that topic that you wanted addressed.
you know, their charts are really good. Their information, I think is really good to see the trends. You know, and as I recall, past presentations, they showed Deschutes County specific, they showed Deschutes versus Oregon. I don't think they do a national one, but, I mean, I think, and if there's any updates on hit rate with the continuing PSAs, I think that would be good. Anything else?
Okay.
It's interesting information.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. 7:21, meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
See you in October.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great night.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care.
And